now going to turn it over to Ritesh. Hey, Ritesh is the Senior Partner of Global Digital Health at Fin. Thanks, Ritesh. We have Adam, who's a VP of Addressable Strategy at Matterkind. And we have Carrie, who's our SVP of Client Success. We're going to talk about how they've actually used measurements and deep intent outcomes to assess the impact of our campaigns here. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I've got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'm wired for sound already.
All right. You good?
Hello, everyone. So how many people had their trousers fit them this morning? That was a joke to try and wake you up a bit, hopefully. But obviously, no one's got a sense of humor today, so we're in bad shape already. Thanks for joining us today. Oh, a little too loud, maybe. Oh, it's that mic. Yeah. So some really interesting statistics. It's a new arena that we're facing, particularly in pharma. So we thought we'd bring some people together who can talk a little bit more and go a little bit more in depth into what CTV is, what it means for the pharmaceutical industry, particularly for DTC. And we've got some people who actually are strategists around this, and also somebody who's actually doing it at the moment. So let's take advantage of that knowledge base and see what we can impart as far as knowledge is concerned. So joining me, Carrie, first of all.
Yeah, hi everyone. Carrie Craigmyle from DeepIntent, SVP of Strategy and Client Success.
Adam.
Hi everyone, Adam Thomas, VP of Addressable Strategy at Matterkind.
So I have a Word document here, which is about 7 pages long, that the DeepIntent marketing department has kindly created for me, which I'm going to now completely ignore and carry. So tell us a little bit. You know, we're talking about CTV, OTT, linear. For those who are not really very familiar, what are some of the differences? What should we be mindful of?
Sure, yeah, I'm just going to kind of reflect on my experience. I've been here at DeepIntent for almost 2 years this summer, and prior to that, I was on the agency side, so similarly in Adam's shoes. And, you know, for the last 10 years before that, I was leading teams, big pharma, agency of record media teams, spending hundreds of millions of dollars in TV and across all channels. So this time of year, we were, you know, frantically looking at our flow charts, building flow charts, getting our investments together for the investment teams and upfronts, and, you know, frantic time. And you're spending all this money, and you're basically looking back in time to plan for the future. And with things changing the way that they do now, you know, we were looking at marketing mix models and all that. And the one thing we knew is absolutely TV works. TV works for pharma. You need sight, sound, motion. You need 60-second units to deliver complex messages. And you turn on TV, and your search spikes, and your traffic spikes, and but we were reaching very broad audiences. So
it was mainly demographic based, if I'm not mistaken.
Demo based, right? Yeah. And you know, I think everyone always thinks, you know, the 50 plus, we're going for news, we're going for this. You know, very traditional in terms of that buy that we were looking at. But we had insights into day parts and genres and channels and things like that. But, you know, again, we were just kind of, you know, you're spending, this investment is the biggest line in any marketer's, you know, advertising budget in terms of what you're looking at. And at the same time that we're planning TV, and year over year, we're seeing programmatic. And, you know, pharma just really, you know, lean into programmatic because we could buy audiences and we could find asthma patients. And, you know, so all of a sudden you saw these buys kind of leveling out in terms of, you know, TV that, you know, is proven, but then programmatic really scaling because of the precision that we could use, because of the targeting
display
and
side,
data.
you mean?
Display video,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So, you know, now here we are today, as, you know, Chris was saying, you know, now we're here talking about CTV, and that we could really put all of the precision-based analysis and that goes into it to really plan out our CTV. And really what that means is programmatic buying for CTV. And that never has there been a better time for pharma marketers, because of the budgets that they spend in TV, to really start to build on linear CTV and your digital ecosystem. And I think, you know, coming from the agency side, you know, really looking at third-party measurements, you know, a couple of months after we had already ran a campaign, hoping it worked, you know, now with DeepIntent outcomes, we literally could tell in real time what's working, what's not, and DeepIntent outcomes is allowing us to see what metrics matter most to a pharma marketer. So audience quality, script behavior, you know, we're reaching patients, we're linking our exposure to actual script. And there's no one else that could do that. And so I think it's that we now have confidence that we could also put these investments into CTV and see real-time measurement, optimization, see what inventory is working in channels, and what data. The more data and the more channels that we're putting in terms of CTV, the more that we're learning, and that's what we want to do.
So I see Adam nodding away over there. So tell me about, because you're not supposed to agree with each other that vehemently already.
That's true.
We've got to go into this a little bit before you can say yes. But give me an example of CTV and how it fits in, because it's not an and. It sounds to me like this, for the marketers out there, it's a linear and CTV and, right? Is that where you're heading?
And having been in the agency side for so long, I remember programmatic as a line item in a media plan. And
Still is.
Still is in some instances, but it is bigger. I think I always have the addressable mindset. It's just how I've been built, and data-driven is how I've always come to think. And so when these massive linear buys are going against age, sex, demo, just never really made sense to me. So what we have tried to do is, in order to sell this into the clients who are so invested in linear, is say, how can we use CTV, how can we use these audiences to grow and build upon what you're doing? We don't want to take away your linear, but we want to see how we can better change your investment, the total in investment, and take the top layer and get you 5, 10, 15, 20% more reach than your linear buy is going to deliver for you.
But it's more targeted reach, I'm assuming,
Absolutely.
right? Because of the addressability of CTV compared to linear.
And that's where our audiences come into play. So, again, taking that data mindset, and programmatic is growing. The digital, the video landscapes, we've always had those data sets behind us that we can, leverage and target, and we know work. CTV allows us to take that into the TV space, and the results are showing.
But do you then do you make it different? Because right now, from what we see, and we're all sitting at home, I've got the BBC News in the background. I can tell you how many pharma ads. I can count them every morning and every evening, because they're definitely day passing,
For sure.
right? But it's all built, and most marketers you talk to will say, I need an ROI for that, whereby you can get, I think, a better ROI analysis on CTV than you could do linear, and maybe change the model to have linear be more of a brand building, brand awareness thing, and then CTV doing the ROI. Are you seeing any of that happening?
We are. At least it's more real time, right? You can track CTV as you can digital and video, versus waiting the six months or so for MMM results to come through with linear. And what we have tried to do is leverage products like Outcome Solutions in order to get more real time, in order to optimize our campaigns in real time, or at least more real time than you can get with anything linear. So what we've done is we actually leverage DeepIntent's Outcome Solution to run all of our media against the patient side and the physician side. We combine those. So from a planning perspective, we know our audiences, both on the physician and the consumer side, and we actually made sure that we were only reporting back on those two audience sets combined. So our client had specifically asked us to do this, and what we found is, we were able to increase our script lift just by adding, these two audience sets together by 11 times compared to, say, the 6 months prior.
Wow. I'm assuming, though, you're building audiences differently for CTV, and also, can you really do real time in pharma? How real time is real time?
So real time for us,
just checking.
it always depended on the reporting, and so
yeah.
the historic pharma reports are, be it 2 weeks or 6 months or say, with outcomes it's the next day, 2 days, and that really has allowed us to optimize and perform a lot better.
But what do you do about the creative? Are you doing more creative up front? Is there more cost involved in doing more sort of creative testing up front and then using things that work?
A lot of the times we're still using the same creative assets that they're running on linear, or that we're running on online video. It's just the channel that we're going after.
Interesting.
And to your point again about are we changing our audiences for this? Yes and no. We know we have all the audiences that work, and we're layering on those patient and HCP audiences. I think where the LGs and other players come into play is with their ACR data. Because what we can then do is negate linear or add on to linear in order to be at increased frequency or increase reach, depending on how you can play with those data sets.
So Carrie, if you go to marketers today and you work with some of these guys, right? I've got $100 million. How do you sort of get them to think about CTV as part of the spend? And I use a big number like that rather than 1 million, which I'm used to 1 million, but you're used to 100. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we were saying, pharma's, sometimes conservative. And I think now with outcomes, we're also giving them, that safety net of you're going to see in real time, are you reaching the right audiences? So I think that's first. But I think the other thing is, if you don't think about CTV, you're losing that entire audience that we've lost over COVID of all of those who have moved to CTV. They're no longer on linear there where we could find them. So I think, you have to think about, the numbers that Chris was just showing, and in terms of what's happened in the last 2 years, if you're looking back to plan forward, those audiences are, gone if you didn't think about it. So CTV now is also that reach extender in terms of looking at your linear buy and who can you reach when you layer in CTV. And I think like I said, I think we all agree that linear is absolutely going to have a role. But as we get smarter and smart, it's not going away. Absolutely.
Just yet.
And and I think but we now have the ability to be smarter with the targeting and really understand the more audiences that we're plugging in, what are those segments that we're really finding those asthma patients or those patients that we're looking for.
But do you find that then the measurement requirements and the ROI requirement is different? Do you get more attention to it? Do you have to prove? You talked about script lift, right? What about the cost per acquisition, or all of the other metrics that marketers are using? Do you have a different set that you use to do that?
A different set.
As in numbers, do they expect different numbers from you? Because you're now saying I can highly target.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good question. We look at all of it, I would say. I would say that the core metrics that a client that I work for is looking at is, of course, total scripts, as well as be it cost per patient or cost per audience quality, if you will. And so we certainly need to monitor those two pieces regularly. Certainly reporting that we do from the client side is 2 or 3 weeks delayed. So we are looking at that data, again, still in hindsight. But yeah, it's absolutely something that we try to look at and try to decrease along the way. It's tough in a biddable environment to do that when you don't have direct data that's being ported in.
How do you do the difference between patient and HCP outreach on this? Because a lot of TV is intended in most marketers' minds as DTC, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We are seeing, definitely growth in the HCP space because, again, we're able to target them at the household level. We're able to deliver I think when you're thinking about, the message that you need to deliver, it's, sight, sound, motion, it's complex message. So a lot of marketers are reaching HCPs with CTV, and we have the ability to do that. And again, we could measure that. And a lot of them are actually using the DTC ad because, we always say doctors are people too. They're watching TV at home, and that we can use that ad to reach them. So that is something, and it's more of an awareness. They're also a consumer, but to really kind of use CTV to reach those HCPs. And I think Adam and his team, were very early adopters of everything in the DeepIntent platform and outcomes, and they had the ability, because they manage both, to have that DTC and HCP campaign running same time, same platform, looking at all script behavior across. So that's a unique position for an agency to have both. In many cases, that HCP and DTC is split up. But
well, that's why I was asking the
exactly,
question.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. So you do see that.
I think we use the same creative too across both.
Yeah, it's definitely a common theme, and a lot of marketers are, would you really do that? And we see it, it's working, it influences them in that big screen moment.
Have you done anything different, though? Have you done a campaign where you've done HCP creative and DTC creative and tested it?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on the brand that I run across my wider portfolio, we do have HCP-specific creatives. There are some clients that I have that I only run HCP activity for in the CTV world. And so, yes, we do have that specific messaging. I don't know if I've looked at the numbers, but I would say that we always take the approach that, again, HCPs are still people at heart. And usually we try to push towards the patient messaging so that the physician knows where the patient's coming from when they enter the office and hears what they hear.
So I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to the CTV stuff, right?
Yep.
So who are the major players?
Yeah, so we run across a multitude of players. So there are, of course, PG deals that we can set up with what you would call the bigger CTV partners, the Hulus, et cetera. And then likely, we'll go with some of the TV providers as well, LG and Samsung. And then we open up kind of the floodgates a little bit and allow the data to determine where we go with the SSP partners, Magnite, FreeWill, et cetera, in the space. So it really depends on where we want to be and where we've seen historical performance. We try not to lock in our dollars too much.
Okay.
So we really do try to let the algorithms play their part and the data play their part.
And we were talking earlier about can you do something with linear and CTV as a package? I sort of talks about NBC and Peacock, for example, or CBS and Paramount Plus. Are you doing anything like that, or is that too
We're not directly doing it yet, but I think it is on the future. Yeah, I mean, certainly upfront buys are still happening across the agency. It's always going to happen, and there's integrations with the TV shows that an addressable partner like me just can't provide. But if we can take portions of that and layer it in from a data perspective, be it the Peacock buy, I do believe that is where we'll start to see a lot more investment come through, playing off of the linear and upfront buys that are going to happen.
Carrie, you talked about real time. Go on, carry on.
No, I was going to say, I think that's something with the investment teams, the trends that, the big holding companies are really to look at what is that linear buy in CTV so that you could combine that investment and really kind of, then put that inventory into the platform and allow the algorithms to do their thing, allow the traders to do their thing. But it's definitely, spot on time of year of like when a lot of agencies, I'm sure, those are the big conversations of, how those are being integrated, how that inventory could be negotiated.
Is there a mindset change you have to make, though? I keep going back to that because, my experience, and I, not like you two, has been around on the DTC side, TV, linear. Is there a mindset shift at the agency level or at the marketer level or both that you have to contend with here?
Both.
Yeah?
I'd say, yeah.
Okay, what's your guidance to some of the marketers around this then? How do you convince somebody that this is a thing to look for?
Again, I think it's follow the audience.
Okay.
And I think, where they're going with CTV. I think, when you're audience-based buying and where they're shifting to CTV. And I think most marketers have now also really embraced the power of programmatic, and they've seen it pay off. So now it's bringing that precision to that CTV buy. So I think it's just kind of weaning them off the crack a little bit of TV and just linear TV and just striking those right balances.
It can be tough.
Yeah,
I mean, the pharma industry has its regulations and PRC compliance groups.
Definitely.
They can take some time.
Yeah, well, I'm still talking to people who are talking about having Salesforce come back. So come on, right?
I've seen 6 to 12 month lead time just to get anything approved, et cetera.
Yeah.
The reason I think that we were able to jump into this so quickly is that I do fortunately work on a client that we are able to push these things through pretty quickly. And the talk track from our perspective was, this is just an extension of both the linear side that we're doing as well as the digital side that we're doing. This is the next natural progressive state that we should take, knowing that linear TV is moving towards the CTV world, and knowing that we have those audiences that work.
Well, you're also seeing content being created more for CTV now than linear in some cases, right? So I know at 8 o'clock I'm going to watch this, but I can watch this anytime I want going forward after that, right? So is there an audience change? There's a mindset from people it's not for my Alzheimer's patients, right? Or whatever. Have you noticed any demographic things?
We're not finding that to be the case. There's scale. There's reach. We're able to perform well. I think that in general, I mean, as Chris said, getting his grandma a Roku, we are, that's the way the world is moving, and a lot of the content is being created there. And, you don't always have to turn on the news at 7 or 8 o'clock whenever it comes on.
Let's go into measurement a little bit. You talked about the engine and optimization and reporting. How efficient is this, and how much data can we get back as a marketer?
Probably too much.
Okay.
So I think we have to be careful.
Do we get into analysis paralysis?
We could, but
Yeah.
I think we need, we kind of stay above the fray, and
Yeah.
really again, when we're looking at the buys across and with deep intent outcomes, really when we're looking at data and the strategy team, and we're trying to understand where, the algorithms are basically designed to find that defined patient that we've agreed to, of a patient diagnosed with X, and really looking at a daily basis in terms of where are we finding these verified patients? Where can we find the greatest volume of patients at the lowest cost? And those algorithms are driving to find those patients. So, that is across whether it's what data sources. We may be finding more patients with certain data sets.
But do you start with demographics first? How do you do an audience build for CTV versus what we're used to in linear? What are the added benefits and the added things you're doing from a data perspective for just audience creation?
Yeah, we're building patient-modeled audiences. We're, basically using clinical data to build out, lookalike patients, but we're also looking at contextual and, all different data sources. The more data sources that we could put into the platform, the more we could learn, the more levers we have to pull. But then, it gets really interesting when the algorithms are on and we're finding more patients or more HCPs who are prescribing. Then we could look at really, what is the inventory we're finding them at? Are we finding them on LG? Are we finding them at Roku, Samsung? We really could then get to understand from an investment standpoint also, where are we finding more patients across CTV or across online video display? And, we are, getting, I think we also, there are learnings that, we're also understanding what is the patient profile. We're actually getting that back. When that impression is tied to a script, we start to understand, they're younger than we thought. They're more females. They're in these geographic areas in the country.
Or
we can really get very
even,
precise
right?
in terms of the learnings that we're having. So we have to find the data that's most important to clients because, you could get a little lost. But with deep intent outcomes, it really does allow us to, pull out that data and really shift the levers to where we're finding the most verified patients and the volume of scripts. And in real time.
And do you add the data sets and keep them and build profiles and continue to add to that so that you can start using those to create more audience?
My team loves data.
Really?
The more that they can get, the
Such
better.
a geek. Did you see his eyes light up? As soon as I started data,
My team does.
Okay,
Me,
all right.
No, listen, at the end of the day, yes, we iterate on our audiences constantly. We kind of have to because things are always changing. Even time of year changes how we want to approach a certain media set. And yes, we do have those tried and true audiences, but those evolve every single year, every single quarter. And like I said, we're constantly having conversations with our clients, seeing the results and seeing how we can then change. And I think that is one of the massive benefits of just addressable in general, but adding in CTV allows us that additional channel, that additional level of information that, again, my team takes back and says, this is awesome. Let's try this. And by trying this, we don't have to wait 6 months to see if that worked.
Can you give us some examples from the work that you're doing with a client around lift or how you've sort of executed a program and then optimized it for prescriptions?
Well, what's really funny is that, again, we had the fortune of being able to kind of jump headfirst into this with client approvals. So we tested the whole thing right off the bat. DTC, HCP, we did it all right off the bat. And what we found really interesting was, of course, combining all three channels, video, display, and CTV, outperformed everything from an individual perspective. But when we broke that down further, which again my team loves to do, we found that CTV actually outperformed the other channels by at least 2 times.
Interesting.
So that is, from a cost per perspective as well as a script lift perspective, the core metrics that we look at. So audience quality is there, and this was a channel that really allowed us to strengthen our current activation.
And what was the time frame that
Yep.
you sort of had that aha moment that, hey, wait, the CTV thing is working
It
better?
took some time. Algorithms take time.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
we set up a full 6-month test, and I think that that's really important to do with
Because it's not
with
a
anything.
1 month in and
It's
wow,
not a 1 month
I'm,
thing
you
that's
know,
going to jump.
yeah,
And
exactly.
life cycle of scripts actually come in a massive
Yeah.
play into that. So we set up a full 6-month test, and those results, as I said, we're looking 6-month over 6-month time frame. The best testament I can give you is that we're still running this today, and investment
There you go.
levels across the board have increased.
Do you find there are the usual suspects of the big ones that have the reach, like the paid of, you know, the Peacocks and the Paramounts of this world? Or are you finding the Hulus and the Rokus and sometimes the LGs are better? How do you define where
It's a good
you'll
question.
spend the money?
I don't know if I know 100% where the
That's all
which
right.
activation is
We
running
can ask
the
the
best.
Google afterwards.
We
if you
should,
want.
yeah. We should ask my team. I'm sure. I'll ping them right now.
Wait, call a friend. Let's call a friend. All right. Sorry.
My approach when I try to do this is that, and again, I'm so data set minded that it doesn't matter to me
Yeah.
exactly where they
It's
show
where
up.
the audience
it's
is
where
is
the
where you
audience
want.
is, and
Right.
at the end of the day, if that's all I have to serve to, then
Right.
great. Now, we are in pharma, and there are certainly some, conversations that need to be had around making sure that the content aligns with the brand and all of that. But again, my client was able to easily brush by that, knowing that our audience sets were sound.
Has anybody done anything when you're talking to them from a strategy perspective? The first question, marketers get excited, and then the medical, legal, regulatory get involved. Privacy. Has that come up? And how do you address that?
I think with CTV, the inventory, the brand safety, all of that is really
It's all
there. So that hasn't really come up as an issue. It's, sometimes it's more about the buying strategies, and I think if they've adopted programmatic, this is just the next natural step.
Okay.
So we're really not seeing too much of that. But
See, for your marketers out there, I'm trying to help you with MLR, so that's the whole idea here.
But I also think, we talk about brands with, big TV dollars and all of that and that shifting. But I also think it's like the mid, brands who aren't at that, 100 million, 80 million, that they could act like a big brand with CTV because they can show up on the big screen and, they don't have the linear buy, but they can, layer in CTV and kind of in their digital ecosystem to add that in. And it doesn't have to be that big power brand, but they could also show up on the big screen. And even if they have a smaller patient population, we could, get a little tighter in terms of now with the precision that we have with the data sources that we would look at.
What would you guide people as you start talking to them and they're dipping their toes into this? How do you get them to start? Like, what are the things you say, this is a, step 1, step 2, step 3 you should start talking about or thinking about if you're looking to do this?
Yeah, I think, we have a pretty rigorous process of, kind of understanding who is the patient that you want to go after, the definition of the patient, the definition of the HCP, running feasibility to determine that there's enough volume of scripts that we're going to be able to measure scripts and, right out the bat.
And audience sets? How big the audience
and then
is?
we, work with them in terms of is it patient-modeled audiences that we're building for them and any other, proven data sets that they have to, again, bring that data into the platform. And, there's a lot of hand-holding, and we kind of get them off the ground. But, I think now, Outcomes has been out there for well over a year, and now, the adoption rate has really taken off. And, pharma companies, agencies are getting much more, Adam's team being, kind of those who leaned in first, but, getting much more in the data, in really understanding what they want to look at. But it really is just about, setting those expectations when algorithms kick in. But again, most agencies and pharmacos that are working on programmatic really kind of understand that. But now there you can see the power of, oh, wow, I could see how many patients I reached this week. And that was $50 a patient. And next week it's down to 40. And, and we're pulling levers, and the algorithms are just finding more and more. So it's been, I think once they're in it, it's kind of that hurdle getting in. But once they're in, it's like they've never, ever been able to see this data before.
What do you say, Adam?
I would think we need to we need to base it in terms that they know about on a day-to-day basis. And right, so yes, my team can get more real-time data from outcome solutions, but that's not the source of truth that my clients are using.
Exactly.
So yes, we absolutely have had those conversations around, hey, we need to do this. Like, this helps my team do X, Y, and Z. You already know that we do this with our, standard DSP activations across display and video, but this is how we can do it in CTV. What we have constantly been talking to our clients about is how this correlates back to what they see and what they think is the source of truth. And so we're just starting to get MMM results from this, but from a Crossix perspective, I can tell you that the correlation was essentially one-to-one with the increases we saw in platform real time versus on the back end.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Quality of audience as well, I suspect, is
Quality of
different, right?
audience, yep, exactly.
Sorry, Carrie, I cut you off.
No, it's exciting for us, and when we talk to Adam and his team and other teams, and we are seeing that where, if they have Crossix, other teams have Crossix in place, and we're seeing our audience quality up over week, and, they're like, well, we don't know what Crossix said yet. And, basically, we're like, okay, well, here's the trend, and then, boom, when they get it, 4 months later, oh, we were right.
Yeah.
So we're making those dollars work smarter all along the way so that when that third-party measure comes out, it's validated. And they could see the trend too. And I think that's what's really exciting of like, these are the indicators you want to look for. And even if, and we say we're not, we're not your third-party measurement, you're still going to have your cross-channel measurement in that. But, to see those correlations, I think that's when, it's that confidence you have that, yes, clients, that's where they're in, and it's like, okay.
Well, like any new medium, right? I mean,
Yeah,
this is
it's all
burgeoning.
new.
It's all
Exactly,
new.
yeah.
We're making stuff up as we go along a little bit, right?
A lot of education.
Yeah. What are
yeah.
some of the pitfalls that you sort of see in this year coming up? People are starting to take more interest in CTV, but is it all in, or is it I'll do a test, let me try it on a small brand first, if it works, then I'll go into the big brand, or is it all over the place?
I think it's all over the place. I would say all over the place.
Okay.
I run a portfolio of brands, and some brands were running only CTV.
Oh, wow.
On the HCP side, that's the case. They're actually hesitant to go into display and video, so
Right.
we're seeing that. But I would say it's brand by brand. It really depends on, to be honest with you, how you talk to the clients about it, and every client has a different perspective on this. We take the approach of, here's how it's working over here, here's how it's working over here, we should try it.
What about the data? You said there's so much data. How much do you give back to the pharma clients? How much are they wanting back from you at the moment?
I think,
What do they want back?
I think they want to see in terms of, from a channel level, what is, channel level of where we're finding patients. From an inventory, geography is really something that a lot of clients look at because it could correlate to their sales force and activity that they have out in market. So, other things like that. But I would say it's really, where are we finding the patients and, the cost per patient. Right now, we're not digging analysis paralysis, but really trying to understand the volume of patients, where they're coming from, and from an investment standpoint in terms of inventory,
Gotcha.
where are we finding them?
Okay. Are they doing anything differently? On some of the display side, they're now getting NPI level data back that they're putting into their own back-end databases to then see territory management and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Are you getting that request as well?
Yeah, I would say for every one of our HCP campaigns that we run, we have our product Orchestrate, where we are feeding MPI level data back to clients on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis in terms of, so that they could feed that into their Salesforce system, so that sales manager knows that Dr. Smith saw a video this day. It's time to trigger an email. I mean, so we are highly integrated with the pharma companies on the HCP side, which has been that's like now, that every campaign that we run is delivering MPI back.
So we're now heading to a near normal, right? Look at this. I
We're
would have
here.
been on Zoom otherwise. I had to get a shirt and all that sort of thing. There is a school of thought that says CTV won't be as big because we're not sitting at home binging things. What's your statement to that, Adam?
I just don't think it'll be the case. I really don't. I just don't know if you have the content at your fingertips like we do, why you would go back to spending the exorbitant amounts to get linear TV. Live events is the only thing that I would necessarily want to watch on linear. Everything else is already there for me.
Oh, I share those thoughts with you. I just wanted to know, what's going on, because there is that school of thought that, the 2 years people were at home, that's why it took off, and we can do that, but no, people are going back to work, so.
I mean, in my mind, it's still, would you rather record that TV show, knowing that you might not be able to watch it, or be able to watch it whenever you can, or whenever you get the chance, and it's already recorded and downloaded for you. So
Exactly. So I've run out of all the things, and I've hit all the items.
Yeah.
Marketing will be happy. So any other thoughts you want to give to folks before we open it up to inquiring minds up there? Any
would
guidance
say
or advice?
The landscape is changing, and linear TV, I've been a cord cutter for 3.5, 4 years now at this point. If we look at eMarketer reports, linear TV is going down and will continue to
do so. Yeah.
And the only way that people are still watching TV, it's just moving over to these CTV channels. And
it's also multi-device now as well. That's the other bit.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. All these devices are providing addressable teams the data that they need in order to set up a really robust strategy for CTV. So it's absolutely worth testing the waters. I understand that pharma regulations can be difficult to get around, but starting now and then maybe 6 months down the line, we can get a test going.
Is there a guidance, one more question, on the guidance of budgets? Are there minimums that people should be thinking about in their heads as they start thinking about this? Or is it an exploration based on, you've got your overall media spend, let's look at taking this amount percentage-wise to do something? What are some of the guidance you two give to your clients when you sort of think about that?
For me, a test budget is always 10%. We take the 70-20-10 approach. So 10%. And take it from the current budget that you have in display that is underperforming, or an audience that you want to say remove and test into expansion of a channel on another audience. That's how I would generally approach it with my clients.
Cool. Carrie?
I think we'll talk about some very exciting things this afternoon that will help you understand maybe your budget allocations in terms of that. So I'm setting that one up. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder on that, but I think we do have ways to really understand, what is the percentage of the audience that we can find of certain patients across certain channels and all that, and really from a planning standpoint, have agencies have access to more tools that will help them with budget allocations and what we want to find. So more to come on that one. Yeah.
Superb. Well, we've got 5 minutes left. Hopefully, this conversation was useful and informative. If it wasn't, you can come and see me later, and I'll give them the money back. But anyway, any questions from the audience? Yes, back all the way up there.
2 questions. Brands who have issues with competitive separation in the CTV space, how are you navigating that? And then the second question is around brands that are used to getting show-level data. I know it's newer in CTV, although adoption and all that stuff is coming, supposedly here. How are you handling conversations with brands who really want that show-level data?
Should we take the first one, competitive? Do you want to answer that?
I can take that. I think it comes down to conversations with the SSPs and the providers, because they're absolutely able to parse out some of that information. It's not going to be perfect, I don't think, but having open and honest conversations with the providers that you're getting the channel level or just the data from, you can start to make strides in that. I don't think in the CTV space it is perfect just yet, though.
Show level data?
Show level data is tougher at this point. The way that we've approached it with the clients is, we could certainly provide you a list of everywhere that you're running on online video and display. It's going to be massive. Do you really want to look through all of that? But some clients do, absolutely.
Well, and that's why I was
That
trying
is
to
very
get that
valid, yeah.
conversation around, the differentiation between the two and how much data can we get back and what do the people really want. So you're right.
I do think we're getting there. I do think that
It'll take some time.
my specific clients have not asked for it at this point, but I think we are getting to that point. But certainly was a question from PRC when we were selling this in.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll go to you first and then you, sir.
Yeah, no, just quick, curious about investment by auction type for CTV specifically, and knowing how constrained inventory is to a handful of players, just wondering how you're approaching that.
So we generally start from the bottom up. So open exchange is where we're always going to try to put investment. But what's interesting is as we get later on in the year, we do try to lock in dollars, knowing the amount of incremental that's going to come down, hopefully, as well as the Q4 timeframe is tough to book up media. So generally in Q1, Q2, we're in the open exchange, and then knowing that we need to start locking in dollars, we'll look more towards those PG deals, PMP and PG, to just make sure that we've locked in that inventory.
Last question, sir.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. Thank you. I'm a data geek too. And I think one of the greatest challenges for linear is that you can't draw conclusions off of estimates.
Right.
There's a lot of projecting, and I think that's the greatest challenge. We know there's a lot of activity. It's just the lack of measurement and accountability down to that specific household level. So I guess my first question, part A, would be, if there was a way to measure linear with deterministic data, how would that change the insights and the attribution, right? And as a second part, you mentioned something about targeting households, and a lot of households, such as my own, has multiple different OEM devices. Like my kids all have LG TVs, but my main viewing one is a Samsung. So how would you distinguish between the exposure on those two types of inventory and then drawing those conclusions back to the target household, if you will?
Good question.
We wanted a simple question
I
to and now
It's a
you've
tougher
opened
one.
up another hour,
Oh my God.
We might as well, I'm getting dagger looks from over there that I'm over time. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a great question.
part of it is, you've got the same IP address in the house, right? So that's that. But Adam, I'm trying to help you out here.
I appreciate it.
We may have to take a sideline on that.
We might need
It
to.
could be a longer answer.
From the linear perspective, you're asking if we were able to get actual down to the script level or audience level data from linear, how would that change how we approach things?
Yeah, exactly.
I would probably need to check in with my investment team on that. I'm sure they would be thrilled. And I think that certainly conversations would change. But it's not the reality at this point, and what we can do in CTV is exactly that. So that would be my approach. From sorry, we probably
Carry on.
wrap it
Yeah,
up.
finish it. Might as well.
Regarding the multiple IP or the single IP address for everything, you're going to get that in any addressable setting.
Yeah.
It's just a reality at this point. So I don't.
The ability to match up the inventory to so in other words, if you know you're buying an LG,
I think it's close, but I don't think we're there yet.
Not
to
there yet,
your question,
yeah, I would say.
I don't think that we're there yet.
It'll come, though. I think it will. Because we've got to figure that out anyway. Right? Adam, thank you. Carrie, thank you so much.
Great,
DeepIntent,
thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.